Yeah.
Music seems a little too quiet.
Okay, Various Harbor. You have a chance to prove that you're not a bot. Or else I'm gonna ban you instantly. No, yeah, okay. You're a bot for sure. Ban. Okay, let me know if the music is too loud. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to be playing the hardest test in the world. Why is? Okay, so today I'm gonna be playing the hardest test in the world. And so, what is the hardest test in the world? It is a test made by Oxford University. I think Oxford University. I'm not entirely sure, but you know, we'll get to that in a bit. So I was scrolling on TikTok a few days ago, right? And I came across a video of this guy talking about the hardest test in the world. I was like, ooh, what is the hardest test in the world? So I look it up. I look at like generally like what the test is, and apparently it is like a test made by Oxford University for like psychology majors. So this test is not like about math. It's not just about like science. It is about psychology and philosophy and all that stuff. So these aren't simple 1 + 1 = 2 questions. These are like the trolley problem all over again, right? So I was thinking, this would be pretty interesting to do, right? Like what could these questions possibly be that make them the hardest test in the world? So I decided, instead of just looking over the test and just answering it how I would answer, I'm gonna speedrun this. I'm gonna speedrun this and see how I can properly do this test. Let me lower the volume down a little bit. I'm gonna check one more time the volume. But yeah, that is what we're gonna do today. I tried recording this off stream as like a YouTube video. The thing is, I cannot do it because the test is a lot longer than I thought it would be. So I ran out of memory on my my computer. So I just, you know, which is fine. It's fine. It's fine. You know what I mean? We're just gonna test it out real quick. Hold on. The test is a lot longer than I thought it would be. So I ran out of memory on my computer. So I just. Is it too quiet? I want the music to be there. I'm trying to see if like the music is not loud enough. Is it too quiet? I want the music to be there. Okay, it's there. It's there. Sorry, it takes a while for that loop to come in. Anyway, let's begin. I'll pull it up right now for all of us to see, and we're just gonna get started with the thing, with the thing. Here's my my little timer, my speedrun timer right there. Let me pull up this thing. We're just gonna get going. We're just gonna get going. Why not? You know what I mean? So to pull up this. So now you're gonna answer these questions with me. If you want to. I don't know. You can sit and watch and hear me answer these questions as fast as I can. And yeah, as I was recording this off stream, these questions obviously required much more thought. So, oh crap. No, I'm spoiling it. No. These questions obviously required a lot more thought than was previously, you know, these questions required a lot more thought than I thought I would have to put in. So it takes a bit. It takes a bit. Let me put chat, no, my camera over here. It's too big, I think. Okay, but anyway, nice to see you guys again. It's been a while. I know I haven't been streaming a lot. Good news, I started a college, which is nice. So be more on and off about that. A few updates about my life. I started a web novel. If you want to check that out, it is called Outbreak, inspired by The Walking Dead. If you like that, check it out. There's links to it on my channels, on my bios and everything. If you want to check it out, it's a web novel. I add one chapter every week. There's that. And I'm posting TikToks daily. If you want to see more of me, I post a TikTok every day. So check out my TikTok. links in bio and everything. Anyway, we're gonna get to it. We're gonna get to it. Okay. See, look, I've gotten that far already. Not that was actually a lot smaller than I thought it would be. But yeah. Look, you can't see the scroll option here, but yeah, there's like over 100 questions. So it's gonna be a while, right? I'm gonna be ready. Actually, give me a second. I'm gonna get water. I'm gonna be right back because I do not want to start this test without water. I learned that the hard way yesterday. 1 second. Ow, frick. Okay, let's get to it. Got my water right here, so I don't freaking die. Let's do it. So I'm gonna turn on the timer. We're just gonna go. So look, there's my thing right there. And then we're gonna. Okay, I need to calm down. I need to calm down. This is scary, dude. I don't like tests. I don't like how stressful these things can be. Oh, it's so cold. Why is it so cold in my room for? I don't know. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. I think that's pretty much it. I have a feeling I'm missing something. What am I missing? Not much, honestly. Okay. We're gonna start. In 3, 2, frick. All right, start. 3, 2, 1, start. Okay. Should we bring back the woolly mammoths from the dead? Yes, because it'll be cool. What eligibility rules should apply to the athletes who are transgender intertex? What's wrong with the Oscars? It glorifies rich people. Should we give what we can? Yes, of course we can. It helps humanity. Does Homo sapiens have responsibilities for other species? Yes, it does, because we're all on the same planet. What if any limitations on immigrants are defensible? Very little limitations on immigrants are defensible. The oppressed will always believe the worst about themselves. Not really. The oppressed will always believe that they are oppressed, or not. That's not what I mean. Okay, wait, hold on. Let's think about this for a second. The oppressed will always believe the worst about themselves. That is not true, because if they are oppressed, then they are actually being discriminated against and, you know, repressed by other people in society. So this specific statement does not mean to be true. Why are conspiracy theories so enduring? Because they make people feel like there's more to the mundane life that they have. So they believe in the conspiracy theories, and which would mean that we need to encourage more critical thinking to people who believe in conspiracy theories, so they don't believe everything that they are told. If Margaret Thatcher and Nelson Mandela had died on the same day, whose death should BBC have reported as its top story? I've heard Margaret Thatcher more times than I've heard Nelson Mandela, so I'm guessing Margaret Thatcher. What teach poor to children? It teaches children valuable life lessons. It teaches children valuable life lessons that they could learn through poetry and useful imagery that they would be able to comprehend. We live in a society exquisitely dependent on science and technology, in which hardly anyone knows anything about science and technology. Does this matter? Not really. A lot of people use their phone without even knowing how it works, which is fine. I think people should have access to the information if they wanted to, regardless, which we do in society today. Why are top female tennis players so much more prominent than top female tennis players? I mean, top female footballers? I have no idea. To photograph is to confer importance. Yes, but it's on an individual level, which makes importance what is it called? Relevant. No. Relative. Would it matter if newspapers cease to exist? Not at this point. A lot of people, there's several different news companies that send news through phones, in which everyone has a phone. So there's not much there. And rather old people stop. Whatever. We just stop. Whatever. Continue. Taste is first and foremost distaste, disgust, and visual tolerance of the taste of others. That makes no sense, so I'm going to say no. Is it colonialist for UK to pressure its former colonies to repeal anti-Semitic laws imposed during the period of British rule? No, but I mean yes, because the UK no longer has control over those countries. But I would encourage those countries with anti-sodomy laws to repeal those on their own or something like that, or heal in their own way. Are streaming services good for music? Yes, they are, because it spreads awareness of certain creators. Or, you know, it spreads the music more virally than it would have if it was a record. We know what happens to people who stay in the middle of the road. They get run down. Discuss. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Life is more complicated than yes or no. So people who stay in the middle of the road are probably being decently smart, because as we know, sometimes in the middle of the road, there's a little yellow line in the middle that people cannot cross. If you stand on that yellow line, cars typically should not run over you, because they would just drive right by you, because you're in the middle. If it's like a two-way street. If it's one-way street, then, you know, pick a side. It's not always a two-way street or one-way street. There's not always yes or no to a certain problem or answer or whatever question. Which concept is more fundamental? Shape or color? Shape. Because there's a lot more colorblind people. If you can't see a shape. Wait, hold on. Pretty cool. I was relating this to just being blind. So, fundamental shape or color? Shape, because you can still do things without color necessarily. You can just label, or yeah, you can just use words to imply shape. You know what I mean? What would be done to achieve greater take-up of vaccinations? What should be done to achieve greater take-up of vaccinations? Force vaccinations. Should more artwork be shredded? Not necessarily. Who cares? If it's a historical piece of work, then, you know, maybe not shred that kind of piece of work. If it was influential, if it was made impactful, then sure, keep it alive. Modern artwork today isn't as valuable or influential as it was back in the day, so shredded artwork today wouldn't be necessarily a problem. Has single-sex education had its day? I guess so, because I have no idea what that necessarily means. Can food be both sustainable and affordable? It should be, but America has not figured that out yet. Can a place of worship be comfortably? Can a place of worship comfortably function as a museum or heritage site as well? Yes, but it depends on what you mean by that. Because if it's all in the same building, then yeah, maybe, because then the rooms could be like separate for separate purposes, right? But if it was just one room that was made for museum or heritage as well, that's kind of iffy, right? I know there's certain churches that, you know, have like things on display for you to see, and they have info and all that stuff, like a museum kind of. But they're mainly churches, you know what I mean? So it's kind of a not really, in my opinion. Just it depends on the scale, I guess. How choosy should charities be about those who may accept donations? They should be aware of where the money is coming from in the first place. If the money is dirty money or unclean money, then they should probably reject it, because we don't want, like, you know, slave money to go into charities, right? Because slave money is ultimately unethical. These extreme inequalities that divide us are human-made. May I even say man-made? Yes, they are, because animals don't necessarily discriminate each other. They don't have the mental capacity for that. But as humans, we just decided, hey, you know, you're worth less than me. And then we just like, boom, you're a slave now. You know what I mean? Like that's how we did things, right? So we should just not do that. And they are human made. Which writer from any period will be most dismayed by how they are viewed today? I would say God, honestly, right? You know, the writer from the Bible, you know what I mean? Like, am I wrong at this point? You know what I mean? Let's go. Do ancient and modern slavery differ in nature? Yes and no. In nature, not necessarily, because it's still humans dehumanizing other humans to do the work for them for free, basically, and for like lesser quality of life. But in ancient and modern day slavery, depends on how far back you want to describe as ancient. Because if you're talking about American slavery, in the case where it was more racial than anything else, it would certainly be different from today's slavery, where I think in most places it's just about like your genetics in a way, other than just race. Like I know there's some places in like Africa, whatever. I know America does have slavery still in their prisons, which is not fun. But in prisons, it's more of like if you're a felon, then you are the slave. So it's a mixed bag of yes and no. I can't say for other countries, but I know in America, it is different, but it's still slavery. Female judges' experience of leading women's lives allows us to see things that men cannot always see. Female judges' experience of leading women's lives allows us to see the things that men can always see. Is it female judges as in the judicial system? If it was in the judicial system, then I think yes and no. If a judge is trained well, then it wouldn't necessarily be up to whether they're a female or a guy. It would just be that they're a well-trained judge. They should all have the same view across the board, right? But in the case of just female and men's life, I feel like they do see life differently, which isn't a bad thing, obviously. But females and males, they see life in different ways. That's not necessarily a bad thing, right? But it also would mean that for men, we see things that maybe women don't see, and vice versa, right? It's I guess yes. I don't know. Is artificial intelligence already beyond our control? No, but we're getting there. Millions of Americans, millions in Africa are poor today because of aid, misery, and poverty have not ended but increased. I have no idea. I have never been to Africa. I do not keep up with African politics or news and all that stuff. What, if anything, is wrong with neoliberal economics? I know one thing about neoliberal economics is that they want, I think it was like no regulation when it comes to like making money or capitalism or anything like that. I feel like there should be regulation when it comes to like just the market in general. I know we need regulation in our society that prevents companies from taking over the government and basically ruining the country as a whole, because companies want money and are willing to trade that for human health. I mean, if human like lowering the quality of life for other humans in order to gain money. Should we stop reading authors because of the political views? In the case of J.K. Rowling, I would say you can keep reading it, but instead I would encourage you to pirate their stuff so they earn no money. That is a joke, by the way. That is, pirate their stuff in a video game. Like a pirate, Sea of Thieves, you know what I mean? Has masculinity not ever been in crisis? Not necessarily. A masculine man is comfortable in his own skin, so even if there was scrutiny about him for being a man or being masculine, they wouldn't necessarily care because that's just who they are, right? A masculine man will be a masculine man regardless of how people feel about them. So if it's in a crisis, that means it is at risk of dying out, which is not necessarily true. People are just being who they are in a sense. So I doubt that masculinity is in crisis. But to be clear, we should not encourage people to like be ashamed of who they are, which includes being masculine, right? Being masculine is not necessarily a bad thing. Is anthropocence a useful concept? Yes, but it's complicated. Should beauty be taxed? Should ugliness be compensated? No, because that discourages individuality. North Macadamia, what's in a name? I do not know what any of this means right here. I don't know what North Macadamia means. In what sense are civil servants servants? They're servants because they serve the people that they're supposed to serve. They're placed in positions of power to ultimately serve society as a whole, so they should not be doing things that are corrupt or selfish, and rather be doing it for the good of their people. Do the methods of philosophy differ fundamentally from those of the natural sciences? No, I feel like philosophy and the natural sciences work hand in hand because you can use philosophy to recognize patterns in today's society or in human behavior, right? I think it's pretty obvious that a lot of phrases in philosophy would apply to human nature, so I think it's interesting to study at the very least. Can the human history of emotions be more than a history of cultural representations of emotions? No, because emotion is inherently a human thing and it comes down to an individual level. I think emotions are a bit more personal than cultural stuff, right? Though cultural is very personal and very important, emotions are generally more important or more than the history. It's a tricky situation, right? Because I know a lot of cultures have been destroyed or hurt or wounded. But to be clear, I think emotions and history of cultural representations of emotions are two different things, and emotions are typically more on an individual and specific level. What does it mean to live a feminist life? To live a feminist life is to fight for equality across the sexes or genders, whatever you describe it to be, right? You just fight for equality regardless, right? That's how you live a feminist life. Should Facebook and Google be required to pay money for the information they acquire about people? Yes, they should, actually. I didn't realize that until I answered this question. Like, they should be paying money for the information they get out of people. Does anything justify stripping someone of their citizenship? No, unless they murdered 20 million people, I guess. There's nothing that could justify that, because once you lose your citizenship, you are basically nothing to anybody, right? You go from being the capitalist houseplant as a citizen to instead being a spider in the corner of the room, right? Because that's what they see you as. The gendered metaphor of the faithful translation, whose worth always secondary to that of the male author original, requires a particular edge of the context of a translation by a woman. I do not know what any of that means. Is the future Asian? Is the future Asian, right? Like, I don't know. Answer me this: is the past Mexican or something? Like, what the frick? What should the geographical and temporal limits of classics be? Huh? What should the geographical and temporal limits of classics be? I have no idea. Is it useful to categorize writers as a blank, queer, or post-colonial? Not necessarily. It's up to the writer to be classified as what they want to be classified as. It shouldn't be up to a community or other people to classify them as a specific person. You should be volunteering up that information for readers or consumers to know, right? There's nothing. No one should be obligated to identify themselves to anyone else if they don't choose to. Is the justice system just? Not in America. Generally, because racism and sexism and all that good stuff. No, novels arise out of the shortcomings of history. Not really. I mean, people can write novels for any reason. I'm writing a novel right now, and it's not based on like history of the world, I guess. It's like a fantasy novel. It doesn't matter, right? But novels, they can. But to say that they always arise out of shortcomings of history, I doubt that. Do you own your body? Yes, because I can leave the country if I wanted to. There would be consequences, don't get me wrong, if I just left the country without filing about the documents or something like that. But ultimately, it is my own body. There's like free will and all that good stuff, right? So I do own my own body. How useful is the analysis of objects from the past in furthering historical understanding? It is very useful to date things from the past to understand how things would happen in history. I feel like there are flaws in that, and I feel like we shouldn't take those explanations too far, as in using it to explain everything. But I mean, they are useful to date stuff. They are useful to explain certain things in history. Are there any unanswerable questions? I can't answer that. Is ignorance bliss? Yes, because if there's less worry in the world, you perceive the world as less worrying or less untroubling. You know less, then you're like, everything's fine. Everything is fine. That's what ignorance is. Why spend money on public art? I don't know. I don't know why you probably would do that. I guess is this talking about like NFTs or something like that? I have no idea. I don't see a reason why to spend money on public art. Depending on what you mean by that. If you're spending money to see public art, then if you're spending money to make public art, that's a good thing. I think the murals on the side of buildings are pretty cool, and bring life into this world, bring joy into this world. Defend tweeting. Tweeting is good because it spreads awareness to a lot of things. Allows people to be more connected than ever. And it promotes social media, I guess. It allows people to speak their minds and be heard. And spread news. When is charity wrong? If the charity goes to the wrong cause, right? Or is charity wrong in the sense it's not necessarily wrong. There may be wrong intentions, maybe maybe the person making the charity is only doing it for their personal glory or their personal reputation, which inherently is kind of wrong because like you're doing it for your own face. But the charity in itself is not necessarily wrong if all the money goes to, you know, a good cause, like, you know, children with cancer, children who need help, homeless people, feeding the hungry, all that good stuff. Yeah. Are there too many books? No, and there will never be enough books. Everyone should have books. There should be more books in the world. Everyone should read a book. Everyone should write a book. Book. Does Google know us better than we do? Probably, but not really, because Google does not follow us around and record every moment of our lives. If they did, then maybe. But other than that, no, they cannot read it into our minds yet. Are old masters overrated? What are old masters? Like old people that know a lot of stuff? They're not overrated. They're just old. So they won't be physically inclined to be able to do much, but their knowledge will be there until like they get Alzheimer's or something. What is a gift? It is an object or a possession or an idea or something that you give to someone else as a kind gesture. Can a literary competition be fair? No, because every mind is different and they write in a different way, and have a different voice and different style. So would not necessarily be fair. But I think there is possibility of, but I think it's valid to say that maybe certain writers are better than others in a way by like comprehension by writing a comprehensive story in a way, by keeping track of everything. Because if one writer, he could be like really good at creating voice and characters, but another writer could be really good at writing a story and like a good lore, right? So, you know, you need to talk about the traits that they have rather than just the overall ability of the writer. Are consumers in search of bargains complicit to modern slavery? What the frig was that? Hold on there. Are consumers in search of bargains complicit in modern slavery? No. It's consumers in search of bargains. You want a bargain. You just want cheaper stuff, right? It's not modern slavery. I don't think so. Slavery is more of just the act of a powerful person oppressing certain people and unethically. It is not the consumer's fault for doing so. It is the company's fault or whoever's fault for enslaving the people in the first place. Would you rather be a vampire or a zombie? Vampire, because vampires live forever and they can bite people and they can have control over their own minds and they are powerful. Zombies are just an undead walking person. They can die. How do they have... Do we value our security too highly? No, but there should be emphasis in other parts and not just security. Is it possible to imagine a society without law? No, because the laws keep us in check. People who do not believe in a moral law should follow at least the regular laws of the government. So that keeps us in check, because the society without law is inherently flawed because people can do whatever they want. And that's when society falls apart. Then you can argue that society has no laws, but if you do something immoral, then you get killed or something like that. There's no society that can have a law be without law, because that would rely on people to follow their own moral judgment, and moral judgment is variable among a lot of people, so it's not reliable. You need laws to keep everybody on the same page. Once everybody is on the same page, society can function. What is the point of voting? To vote for the things you want to happen, or the people that you want to put in power. That's what it should be at the very least. Currently, in reality, voting just doesn't work, right? Anyone can get in power no matter, depending on who they know that are already in the positions of power. So it doesn't necessarily matter if you vote or not at this point in our world. When, if ever, should one prioritize form over function? I know this. I learned this in business class. Form over function. When the function is not performing good, you take a step back and look at the form. Are emotions irrational? No, because they would make sense based on the experiences of the based on the experiences of the person based on the experiences of the person that is feeling those emotions. They are not irrational. they can be perceived as irrational based on like from an outside perspective, like, oh, that person got mad at an apple, like how irrational. But if in the sense of the person's mind, how they're feeling is rational for whatever reason, they should but they should be encouraged to learn how to control their emotions. You know what I mean? Does it matter if we are alone in the universe? No, because if we are alone, then it wouldn't matter because we're just all here on the planet alone. If we are alone in the universe, doesn't matter for okay. If we are, no, because if we were alone, then we would just be here in for eternity, right? If we weren't, gosh, this is difficult. I'm losing track of how I'm thinking. Doesn't matter if we're all alone in the universe. No, because if it did matter, I don't see a reason for it mattering if we were alone, because then we would just be here and we have to figure out our problems on our own. Are there topics one should not joke about? It is variable. It depends on the situation. It's more of a case by case. It's more about a case by case scenario and context and the people you're around and all that stuff. But for general, you want to keep out of more sensitive topics, maybe things that are recent or a bit more in the public eye, depending on what kind of person you are, where you are, who's listening, and all those stuff. Are there topics one should not wait? Compare a contemporary political leader to a character in mythology. Zeus and Donald Trump, right? They both are evil. I don't know. I can't. Are male and female outdated concepts? Should there be a university church for religious universities? Sure. How should we close the gender pay gap? By paying people the things that they earn, like paying people fairly. Yeah. Music came to a full stop in Brahms. I don't know what that means. Should we even try to understand how the brain works? I think we already do. Isn't it like neurons and things firing in our brain, all connecting into one like giant chain of command? All these interlooping neurons that spark and light up and go brain blast, and you get an idea. I think it's important to comprehend how the brain works. It is much more complex than what we have built, like ever, as in an AI sense. I think when we just look at the examples of human society and how humans just remember and act and do the things that they do to understand how the brain works. Because ultimately, what we are is the brain in like a metal skeleton, metal mech, not metal, flesh mech, flesh robot. Richest 1% on target to own 2/3 of the wealth by 2030. Does this matter? Yes, it does, because it screws over people that are not even like have a dollar to their name. You know what I mean? The richest 1% should not have that much money. That is impossible to spend. They will never spend that money in their lifetime. They hoard it. They do it to control their wealth. Because if everybody had that kind of money, they're suddenly not the richest 1%. They're suddenly in like they're suddenly like the same worth as everybody else, because everybody else has the wealth. So what they do is they hoard the wealth to control the value of the dollar. That's what they do. That's what they do to screw us over. So this does matter a lot. They shouldn't have this much money to do whatever they want. What, if any, are the advantages of binge watching? You guys will enjoy a good story for a long time without any interruptions. It's a fun time. Is the dominance of English in Western popular music regrettable? No, it's just a language. It's ultimately just a language. Music is music, and it's probably a more universal language. So I mean, there are people that sing songs that are in different languages that they have no idea what they mean. The Polish Cow song, for example, I would sing that sometimes, and I didn't know what it was about until I translated the lyrics or whatever, and it was like about cocaine and stuff. You know what I mean? So it doesn't necessarily matter that it's English in Western, right? It's just it could even encourage it would even encourage other countries to make more music or make more unique music for people to stretch outside that comfort zone of just English. What sort of equality ought to exist in a family? What sort of equality also exists in family? The good kind, like of equality. Like what other equality is there? We right to taste life twice, in the moment and in retrospection. Discuss. That may not be a universal rule, but I think that's very true. In the sense of a nonfiction piece of work, you right to taste life twice, right? So you write the stuff down to relive it through your thoughts and have it put down on paper. And then now you can go back to that paper, remember all those times that you wrote down, or all those times that someone else wrote down, and they can be put into your mind. It's like a storage bank for memories. That's interesting, right? Is Shakespeare too good for actors? No, I think Shakespeare is honestly overrated in my opinion, okay? Because it's just some dude with wordy words, right? Who thought so highly of himself, right? The dude's been dead for like over 70 years at this point. Like, is he really a big deal at this point? Like, obviously he had like good stuff and people that still reference it and talk about it today, but it's like, who cares? Who cares at this point? You know what I mean? Should signatory states withdraw from the European Convention of Human Rights? No, I don't think they should. It's human rights. It's not something you can just say. It's not like you can just say no to human rights. You know what I mean? I mean, people do that, but in the sense of like morality and just good conscience, you don't say no to that. Is the internet beyond effective regulation? Yes, because of how large it has gotten so far. But I mean, you can still try. Eventually, the laws will probably seep into the websites and the stuff and stuff like that. The websites and the internet as a whole, and it'll just become the new norm. So I think actually, yeah, it should. There is effective regulation, right? But it's in terms of like the law and morality, a lot of stuff. But ultimately, things will still get around regardless. It's just up to the competency of the enforcers of this regulation. How important are free market forces in the development? How important are free market forces in the development of the arts? Important because the arts are ultimately no, because art will prevail regardless of how much they have in a sense, right? Because you can give an artist just a pencil and they will give you like a masterpiece, right? You can give an artist every tool they have in the world and they would still like use one or two. So it's not necessarily like something that needs to be done, because art will grow anyway. It would be ideal to have the resources given to the arts to do the things that they want to do, which are much bigger and bolder as time goes on. Is globalization in retreat? It's never been in retreat. It's like a pendulum. It swings back and forth, right? It goes from globalizations to what is it, like industrialization, where like they use machines more than humans, then back to globalization because then it exports the jobs to other people in other countries. So it's on like a swing, right? So if it's on a retreat, then maybe I would say like a yes and no, because companies are realizing that sometimes certain jobs can be done by robots, or some other companies say it could be cheaper by humans in other countries. I think it's just more of like a flowing kind of state right now. Is it time to give up on the Nobel Peace Prize? Nobel Peace Prize? I guess so. I don't know. No one cares about this other than rich people. And like, yeah, in a well-functioning democracy, do people not live in echo chambers? In a well-functioning democracy, people do not live in echo chambers. True. I think people should not live in echo chambers in a democracy. Democracy is when the people vote for, the things that they want. Everyone contributes into the society as a whole, in a sense, right? Because you vote and the voters, they affect how the leaders are running the state, all that good stuff. So people should not be in echo chambers. They should be constantly educated about the state of society, the state of the country as a whole, which allow people to vote more effectively and consciously. Much more exhilaration and gusto can be got out of literature if one takes a more devious. Much more acceleration and gusto can be got out of literature if one takes a more devious way in. If like you start in the middle of the book and then you start reading from there, Who cares? It depends on how you mean by devious way. Like you read backwards. It depends on the person, right? Some people want to read from the very beginning to the very end. Someone could say like, oh, you don't need the first paragraph. It's so much better if you do this. It's up to preference. Is tourism a necessary evil? Tourism a necessary evil? I would say no, because they just want to enjoy the sights, right? At the same time, you know, they kind of ruin ecosystems and they ruin cultures and stuff like that by doing tourism. I feel like if tourism was a bit more like regulated and just watched over, then maybe it could be a good thing. It's not. I don't think it's an evil per se. Like in the sense of Hawaii, right? Like how white people came in and basically just took over the islands and the country as a whole, and screwed over the culture, screwed over the people. And tourism like helps, like contributes to like ruining the environment of Hawaii. So it's not necessarily evil. It's just how they come into the country and how they treat the country as a whole. It's not a necessary evil. It's just something that we're screwing up as we do this. It's not something that we're educated about and not something that we talk about a lot. Can we teach machines to be good? Yes, we can. We don't teach them, we program them. And the better we get at that, the safer they will be, the better they will become for society. How useful is the concept of decline to a historian? How useful is the concept of decline to a historian? I don't think it's a concept. It's more just like a pattern. There's decline in everything. Every society has a certain decline. Life has a decline. All that stuff. I think it's important. It's useful to recognize patterns. Television is a form of entertainment which permits millions of people to listen to the same joke at the same time and yet remain lonesome. Are social media any better? No, it is not any better. People can listen to the same videos every time and feel alone at the very end. Why? Because nobody wants to have a conversation anymore. Everybody's on TikTok. Everyone is just watching these videos instead of looking up and talking to each other and having conversations. Social media is just more in your face and more accessible. Social media is the more advanced version of television. Should no fault divorce be recognized? What is no fault divorce? First off, let's get this right. What is no fault divorce? I mean, you don't have to make a case for why you want to divorce your spouse. It should be recognized because it's still divorce. It's still separation between two people. So regardless of whoever's fault it was, even if it wasn't anyone's fault, it's still divorce. It doesn't necessarily matter. Is literature inherently international? No, because of the language. No, because of language barriers, but the easy way to fix that is just translate the books in like other languages. So I'm guessing it isn't. What would be the next disruptive innovation? The next disruptive innovation, I believe, will be in the form of advanced AI that can see into your mind. AI that can predict what you're going to say before you even say it. You know what I mean? The AI that can predict what you're going to search before you even search. We have DALL-E, we have ChatGPT, which is already revolutionary, right? We're talking about this at my college, right? And people are like freaking out because of how good it is for society, technically, right? Before like the companies and everyone takes over it. Right now, it's a really good tool. It's really, really cool. If you want to make games, if you want to just do anything, you can ask it. You can ask it to help you with something, and it'll help you with that. Like make a schedule, be a personal planner, all that good stuff. Once you have like a 24/7 on the clock AI to just help you out with anything that you need, with better processing, better critical thinking, like that would be truly disruptive, I guess. And also. Another thing would be deepfakes. Deepfakes are insanely growing at a much faster rate than I thought it would be. If you've seen the TikToks where it was like Trump, Obama, and like Biden like all playing Minecraft together or something like that, like those things are insanely good. Imagine how good it would be when AI starts to be literally indistinguishable from the actual person. Like it's getting there. It's very close right now, but you can hear like the subtle differences between voice and AI. So once AI closes that gap and becomes 100% indistinguishable from the actual person, it's GG's, right? It's GG's. That would be the disruptive. That would be the disruptive innovation, because you wouldn't be able to trust a lot of video or a lot of voice recordings, because it might be, it might be fake. It might be just untrue. Just once AI closes that gap of like from being robotic to like human level like comprehension, human level abilities, it's GG's. Well, the good thing about science is that it's true whether or not you believe in it. Yes, it is true. Science is science regardless of what you believe in. Like how the Earth is made out of tiny little atoms, right? It's science. This is not, it's not rocket science. You know what I mean? Science is true whether or not you believe in it. Like it just is, right? You recognize patterns and how things are made, and it just works. Like what you see in reality, in real life, it just once you put it under a microscope, you can just see everything. Like you recognize how it works. Once you're a scientist, you know it's not even a question. Did the Enlightenment happen? Yeah, people just got smarter. It's more like an event, like rather than just people just going, oh, like it was like a whole wasn't like a whole period of time where like people just got smarter and like started being like, oh, more philosophical or something like that. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what that was. Is the center left doomed to extinction? No. People will always be on whatever spectrum they want to be on, so it will still exist even if it gets smaller and smaller or bigger and bigger. People are going to be on whatever they want to be on the spectrum of political views. Does time heal historic injustice? Yes, but that depends on how far you want to go with it, because it's not just time, right? It's physical, like the things that happen in history that were unjust, like they were real, they had consequences, right? It's not just time, right? We had to fight for these rights. We had to fight for whatever we needed to do. We had to fight for whatever we needed to get to where we are today, and there's still a lot of fighting to be had. So it's not just time. It's the effort it's to put in the effort to make change. Should there be a right to financial security? Yes, there should be a right to financial security. No one should be scared that they can't feed themselves with their children, right? Because their $15 an hour job doesn't give them enough hours, or does not give them enough pay to feed their kids. Everyone should have that kind of stability in life. Microhistory, the ultimate example of historians being captured by their evidence. Microhistory, the ultimate example of historians being captured by their evidence. I do not know what that means. What can fiction do that other platforms of artistic expression cannot? Fiction tells a story, and you can say, oh, art can tell a story, and yes, it can, right? The thing is, fiction tells a lot more in a much more condensed space, right? Art, on the other hand, is more like art on the other hand is like on a person by person basis. Without words, a piece of art can mean different things to different people. And fiction is more specific. It's more linear, right? You open the book up, and it's just the words on the page, right? When it's art, it's like a mural. It's like a picture, right? They can interpret and have your own meaning to it, which makes them ultimately different. Is classics racist? What is classics? Like old time music? No, not necessarily. If the words are not racist in themselves, you can enjoy a classic piece of music like Frank Sinatra, right? Wasn't Frank Sinatra like not racist or something? I don't know. Just don't listen to a racist song. You know what I mean? Does it matter whether we have free will? Yes, because we do have free will initially, right? That doesn't mean we don't have consequences to our actions, right? If we're gonna go off of the law, we do have the free will. We do have the option to like throw this water bottle onto the ground, right? But there will be consequences, such as the water bottle would now be spilled onto the ground. You know what I mean? Free will is just the ability to do whatever we want. If we had no free will, then our actions would not be able to be our own actions, right? Like the government could have the option to just make me go like this if they wanted to, right? That is not free will. So it does matter because we ultimately have free will. Disaster is rarely as pervasive as it seems from recorded accounts. Disaster is rarely as pervasive as it seems from recorded accounts. Discuss. That is not true. I mean, people can have horrible experiences, right? Because they're not all in the same position. Like if there was an earthquake happening at this very point, I would have the worst account of it all because I'm in the center of the earthquake, right? Someone 10 miles away would say, hey, the earthquake wasn't that bad, right? So I would say no, because it depends on the person. Yet there are facts to tell you like how bad the earth was. Like if I had like the little measuring thing of how bad an earthquake is, like that will tell you how factually bad it was. But from recorded accounts, I would say no, because it ultimately depends on the person that's giving the account and what their relation to the disaster was. Is it permissible to use animals in scientific research? And if so, in what circumstances? Yes, but morally questionable, right? Because you can use an animal for scientific research, as in keeping it in a habitat, right, to research the behavior and all that stuff. I think experimenting on animals is inherently unethical. The thing is, a lot of things in life wouldn't exist if it wasn't for experimenting on animals. I think it's important that we produce products that are safe for animals and people. So before you even put anything onto like the experiment bunny, you should be like 100% sure that this will not harm the bunny, right? Like whatever chemicals you put in it. I just feel like why are we putting so much chemicals in ourselves in the first place? You know what I mean? Let's just have like one chemical that's like harmless. Then that's it. You know what I mean? Like why can't we have that? I don't know. Should sugar be taxed? Yes, because then will be less fat people in America. Is it ever justified? Oh, no, it should be taxed. The taxes should go to the companies, not the people. Yes. Is it ever justified to use force in breach of international laws? Ever justified to use force in breach of international laws? No, because they're international laws. You're still under them, I guess. The age of utopias is over. You agree? The age of utopias never existed. You know, my guy. Like, there has always been evil in the world. Utopia is like the perfect idea of a society. We never had that. Okay. So it wasn't not that it's over, but it never existed in the first place. Writing saved me from sin and the what? Writing saved me from the sin and inconvenience of violence. I don't see how that could save you from violence. In the sense of like you putting out violence into the world. It's variable from human to human, right? People could just want to get their feelings out there. Writing could be a way to do that. Like I've written my feelings away, which is a healthy thing to do. I recommend anyone to just write the things they feel down on a paper. You could be like, I'm writing a letter to this family member that hurt me, writing a letter to this, writing a letter to that. And then you can pretend that you're going to send it, but then after you've written everything down, you don't need to send it. You've written everything you felt onto the paper, right? It's your option to send it if you want to, but like it's more for you than for the other person. It's just healthy, right? It's healthy to heal. It's healthy for the mental health. So just do it if you want to. How should we prepare for the end of the world? There's nothing we can do for that. It's the end of the world, right? There's nothing we can do for that. Depending on what you mean by the end of the world, because the end of the world could mean like total utter destruction of all the land on the planet. Because then what are you gonna do? Like, what are you gonna do if the world freaking it ends? You know what I mean? If you mean like classless society, then bunkers, renewable food sources. You know what I mean? That's basically all that we need to do. Why are there still communists? Because communists are ultimately like the opposite of capitalists. And there will always be opposites in a world, right? People will ultimately be opposite of one thing or like opposing one thing strongly, and for one thing another, for one thing strongly, and that just happens to be the opposite of capitalism. You know what I mean? So they just believe that capitalism works. They've either than not to say that communism isn't an effective thing, because I have no idea. I've never been a communist. I've never been in a communist society. But in the sense of people still believing they're communist, depending on where they are, like say if it was Russia, you know, ultimately who kind of failed at being communist in the first place and is now like one of the scariest countries on the world because they are threatening nuclear warfare. You're kind of brainwashed at that point, right? You can be a communist, like what is it, like Bernie Sanders? Bernie Sanders is a socialist, but he's getting there, right? Communism isn't inherently a bad thing. It's just like a bit of an it's a bit of an extreme. I think socialism is the way to go, personally. Just communist, I don't know. It depends on where you are, because you can be in like Russia, you know, disconnected from the internet, disconnected from everything, and still believe in communism because that's the only thing you've been taught to believe. Do we owe duty to the dead? No, but it is respectful and it keeps us in check, right? If my father died and said, hey, I want my son, me, to be like, to do this with his life, or like to do, like to help, to honor me in this way, like I would necessarily like want to be able to fulfill that. It depends on what the will is of the dead, right? You don't want to be like, oh, I want my son to be a Nazi. Like, you know, you don't do that, right? But inherently, it's not just a duty to the dead, it's a duty to ourselves to for the overall betterment of society. If you were a dictator, what would you ban? I would ban lobbying. I would ban the ability to like get over $1 billion in wealth. I would ban your mom generally, I guess. I'm just kidding. Is the European ideal kaput? What the frick? What is this phrasing, dude? What is the European ideal? Declares the fundamental values are the ones common to the member states in a society in which pluralism, non-discrimination, tolerance, justice, solidarity, and equality between women and men prevail. They are human dignity, freedom, democracy. Human ideal kaput? No, I guess they're just an ideals. They're not like something that you can destroy. Sexuality is to feminism what work is to Marxism, which is most one's own yet most taken away. Discuss. Sexuality is feminism what work is to. Sexuality is ultimately under feminism, in a sense. On work, Marxism is just like communism, but with a different name, basically, from my understanding. No, because they're inherently different things about humans. Yeah, I'm gonna just say no on that one. Not that either one is greater than the other. It's just a no. They're just different. Account for the rise of internet memes. I think it was inevitable to happen. If you're gonna allow everyone to have access to each other, there are gonna be communities that prod up. There are gonna be people that create stuff, right? With new technologies. So for the rise of internet memes is for people to joke about the things that they see in life. Say for like Grumpy Cat. People saw a funny cat and they talked about it and they blew it up. That's internet memes. That's the rise. People enjoy it. Then the people in the news pick it up and like, oh, look at this new meme on the internet, Grumpy Cat, and then they're like, oh, whoa, and stuff like that. Can sports make a nation? No, because sports is just an activity that people enjoy. It's not like making a nation, right? I want to see the football, the nation. You know what I mean? I want to see football join the EU, right? Join the war footballers. You know what I mean? Defend the neglected classic. What is it with this testing classics? What the frick? Give me classic. I don't know classic. The second Elizabethan age is likely to be remembered as a reign of uninterrupted national decline. I have no idea what that means. Does it matter what we eat? It does, because it affects like what happens to our bodies. So it does matter what we like. What is the use of magic? Magic isn't real, so there's no use of magic. Okay, that's it. That's just it. In the age of pictorial reproduction, the meaning of paintings is no longer attached to them. Has the age of Instagram altered our ways of seeing? No. I mean, yes, but not like in a negative way. We just consume a lot more than we used to back in the day, because there's when you made a painting back in the day, there was only one of that painting in the world. So people were like, "Oh, look at this one thing that exists only here," right? Now with the internet and Instagram, right, you can see the same picture on your phone and then see the same picture on another phone. You know what I mean? Like it generally, like it's like inflation. You know what I mean? Like it just becomes less valuable technically. Is cynicism inescapable? What is cynicism? What is cynicism? Inclination to believe that people are motivated purely by self-interest. Okay. Yes. Why? Because I mean, it's not that it's inescapable. It's that it will always exist. In a sense, it will always be like an ideal that people have. We should encourage people to not think that way, but ultimately, cynicism will exist in people who are, more skeptical, more negative about life, and that can be like, oh, this person is only doing something good for me because they want something out of it. You know what I mean? It's up to a person to determine that reality, and determine if it's true or not. Because it may be true that someone may be doing something good for their own benefit, but there were cases, and I think it's perfectly normal for people to do things out of kindness. So it's not that it's inescapable, it's just that it may exist from time to time, and it's our job to encourage people to not think that way, or to just like not always think that way. Should journalists always tell the truth? Yes, it's their job to tell the truth. It's their job to tell the truth about whatever they journal on. You know what I mean? Although it's like one of the deadliest jobs in the world, I think, or like one of like the more dangerous jobs in the world. You sign up for the job for a reason, right? And you take the risks knowing what you're about to do is going to put your life in danger, which I think is ultimately honorable and respectful. So it's not that journalists should always tell the truth. It's that the job requires you to tell the truth, and if you're not going to tell the truth, then you're not a journalist. You're just a liar. Can a deal be art? Yeah. Depends on what you mean. Like art as in like a physical art, like the theater arts. You know what I mean? Like a performance, you may close a deal with a client, right? And people can applaud you for closing the deal because it means good things for the company, good things for this, good things for that. It's ultimately like a performance. It's ultimately like a performance of your skill, which it does fall under art. What is it about the alt-right? Isn't it like the extreme? I guess. I don't know. The right is just like a group of right people in the sense of politically right. The alt-right is, I actually never thought about that. Alt-right. Oh yeah, it's just about like when you're on the internet. Alt-right. Alternative rightness, I guess. I don't know. Are the only good answers those that destroy the question? No. That's not true. That's stupid. Why would that be a thing? A good answer is just something that answers the question as well, not destroy the question. Like, what is 1 + 1? It equals 2. Boom, destroyed. I know, it's just the answer to the question. Who cares? Is the sampling of music theft or quotation? It varies from creator to creator, or from sample to sample, right? Because you can just copy and paste a full beat, right, or a full song, background, bassline, whatever. That could be kind of copyright because the person may not like that. I feel like creators should be clear about what they want sampled and what they don't want sampled. If a creator samples another song, they should get permission, or they should, state credits and all that stuff, and be open to like legal reinforcement if, like, you know, the original person, the originator, does not appreciate their work being sampled. Like, GG's, like, what can you do? Invent a new idiom, then spill the beans? Invent a new what? Something on music is invent a new idiom, then spill the beans. What is an idiom, first of all? Hold on. Idiom. Established as a usage of having a meaning, not just like, yeah. Yo, you know, I got my words in a beanie. Words in a beanie. That means that you got words up here. You got thoughts, right? You got my word. I got my words in a beanie, right? Let me open it up real quick. You know what I mean? Words in a beanie. You know, means you got thoughts in your mind that you want to say. GG's. Should you love your neighbor? Yes, of course you should. That's 100%. Like, there's no question. Yes, love your neighbor. Okay. Not in the romantic sense. Not in the romantic sense. The platonic sense. Be kind to your neighbor. Be kind to those around you. Like, that's ultimately what humans want, is to be shown kindness to, right? Humans who are hurt grow bitter and sad, right? If they're like mentally unaware of like what they're doing. Loving your neighbor just spreads kindness. Okay, spread kindness. Okay, that is like the most obvious question, other than 1 + 1 = 2, right? It's just spread kindness. Okay, it's not a question. If we had more kindness in the world, things wouldn't be as crappy as they were today. Like that's it. That's just GG's. Whose interest does WikiLeaks serve? Weird people's WikiLeaks. People who just want to see like disturbing things. Yeah, that's basically it. No one else. I mean, same thing with most other wikis out there. Is there such a good thing as a bad taste in visual arts, musical literature? No, because art is subjective. But I think skills are much more able to identify. Right? So if you are interested in a certain type of music or art or literature, like, you know, if you're listening to like an artist who like has bad audio overall, it's like, why are you listening to this? You know what I mean? Actually, then no, art is always subjective, because you can want whatever you want and it won't necessarily matter. Archimedes will be remembered when Aeschylus is forgotten because languages die and mathematical ideas do not. True, I guess. I mean, math is math, right? People will develop math regardless, and it would always be based on 1 + 1 = 2, and they would go from there. Like, there's nothing else. Like, math is math. Mathematical ideas do not. That's fair enough. Can democracy enthuse only those who are deprived from it? Enthuse only those who are deprived from it? No. Because anyone who's deprived of democracy would like want democracy, right? People who are in democracy should be happy about that, because like their democracy is like allowing them to have their voice be heard, right? Debunk a modern myth. The myth that I am a handsome young man based from my grandmother's point of view. Like, I'm not a handsome young man. Ask any woman so far, you know what I mean? For what should we ask forgiveness? For our wrongdoings, things that we do wrong. Say, hey, I'm sorry for what I did. That's it. GG's, you know what I mean? Is censorship good for creativity? No, because it allows people it puts restrictions on creativity. But the thing is, it's not necessarily a bad thing either, because you may like make something creatively, you make something creative, yet, you know, send like a very hurtful message or very bad message, right? And I think it's also up to the people to like also censor like the things that they don't agree with, in a sense. Not cancel culture, but like if I said, like, if I made a piece of art that encourages people to discriminate against another group of people, then it's like, okay, dude, like, GG's, you're gone, you know what I mean? Can satire be constructive? Yes, it can be. It can make fun of the things that you don't agree with, or things that that concern you in society. In constructive, you take it as a way to better yourself. Why is the price of housing so high? Because the companies and rich people are buying all the houses and raising the prices of the housing market up, and then it's gonna crash and we're all gonna die. Is sex work just work? What does the European Union owe to the Roman Empire? I don't know. I don't care anything about what that is. Is incompetence the most underrated force in human history? Yes. Yes, it is true, because it can lead to the downfall of nations because someone is incompetent in the things that they do. Should it put brakes on globalization? No. There should be regulations. There should be like a fairness to it, and not just all for one and one for all. You know what I mean? All lives matter. They do. All lives matter generally. All lives matter ultimately. In the sense of, you know, equality, in the sense of equality of opportunity, equity, all that good stuff. Obviously there's a difference between all lives matter and like Black Lives Matter, because yeah, all lives matter, but right now it's not like the white people are like going through a crisis right now. You know what I mean? Like the black people of Mississippi are going through crises right now because they're putting back Jim Crow laws. You know what I mean? So when you're having to do with Jim Crow laws again, it's not all lives matter because you're not being discriminated against, right? It's Black Lives Matter. You know what I mean? Like, all lives matter is the baseline, right? But the thing is, we're not talking about all lives matter. We're talking about a specific category of lives, Black lives, that, you know, require the help that, you know, that the phrase means. Is there any such thing as original work of literature? Is there any such thing as an original work of literature? Yes, there is, because there's no, like, you're not going to produce the same exact story as someone else. But there can be things that are inspired, right? But that doesn't mean that things are not original. Original is just completely, original means to be unique, right? You can have a unique story inspired by other stories, you know? So, what is it? What is the question exactly? Yeah, there is original work of literature. Yes, there is. Make the case for mandatory retirement. When people are too old to function, that is the case for mandatory retirement. Can economists study irrational choice? Yeah, you can. You should be able to recognize irrational choice or study it. Does it matter if language dies out? I mean, it does. Ultimately, people will find a way to communicate. Language would still be a thing. Oh, if a language dies out. Okay, hold on. Not necessarily. Not necessarily if a language dies out. People could still study it. People could still learn from it. The language overall should still exist in like some form, like literature or like recordings and all that stuff. But the language itself, not necessarily, because then it just means people like more people understand each other through the single language, through a unified language in a sense. Let's see here. Can national borders be anything other than artificial? Yes and no, I guess, because a border is a border that, you know, you would have consequences that would bring consequences to if you crossed it. So even if it is artificial, then it still matters, right? I guess. I don't know about that one. Should Bob Dylan have won a Nobel Prize? I do not know who Bob Dylan is, but it's funny. The first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers. Why? That's no, because the lawyers are the ones that fight for you, I guess. You know what I mean? No. Why is journalistic a pejorative term? What? Journalistic. Relating to journalists or journalism. Pejorative term. Pejorative. Wait. Concept. I don't know what it. I don't even think it is. I don't even think it is a pejorative term. How should juries be selected? Randomly, unrelated to the actual cause of the situation. Should have a fair amount of of randomness to it and diversity to it. People from all parts of life that can see it from different angles. That is a good thing. That is a unique idea. The United Kingdom, of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Great Britain, Northern Ireland. I can still destroy the object with the hammer. I am Lord. Yeah. If we change the ending of Little Red Riding Hood, is it still Little Red Riding Hood? If we change the ending to... Yes, but it would just be a different story. Yes, it would still be Little Red Riding Hood. But it would be like under it'll be like a subsection of the original story, because the original story would still exist regardless. So you can't change the ending. You can rewrite the story, and have a different ending, but it's still a subset of Little Red Riding Hood. It's more like Little Red Riding Hood is more like a character at this point rather than just like a story as a whole. So I think it's still Little Red Riding Hood, but it's more nuanced than that. What if there are no hypothetical questions? That's funny. That's a funny question to ask. Then society would have very little to go off of. I think hypothetical questions are like the things that poems and stories answer, right? Like, what if this was this? That's what a story is for. It tells that message, tells that story, and it gives that answer, right? there are no hypothetical questions, we would rely more on stories because they would have the answers to what we're looking for. We would encourage people to read more. We would encourage people to think more, right? At the same time, questions are still questions, right? There's still questions that people have, question. I need to keep saying, I need to stop saying question, but they're like wonders that people have about the world, and so they're not a bad thing to take away. But if there were no hypothetical questions, I think people would just rely more on common sense, as well as like stories and books. I think maybe people would be more educated. Oh, yeah, that's true. Because then people could say like, what if I died? What if I did this? What if I did that? And it's like they use it for like nonsensical arguments. So yeah. 2022. What would determine the pay of CEOs? By how much work they do, or like how much money their company makes. No, that's not true. By how much work they do. If they're not on the clock, they should not be paid. They should not be like being paid anything. You know what I mean? They are the head of the tree. They should be. If they're the head of the tree, if they are the head of everything, then yeah, they might deserve more pay. But it should not be like triple like what the company like last quarter was. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be like the company's profits like as a whole, like half of the company's profits. It should just be like a percentage higher than like the lowest paying person. You know what I mean? Like just CEOs should not be being paid that much. Should technology companies cooperate with governments in matters of national security? Yes. Because even though censorship is possible, it still keeps our information safe, at the very least, I guess. It's a difficult question to answer because we already have like because there's not much we can do about it anyway. Our information is still being viewed anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I would say no. Should roads fall? Frick is roads. I guess Rhode Island. Probably just suck it up into like New Jersey or something. That's all we need to do. Propose an image of an event that defines the 20th century. Like a person with like a phone in his face, and like his eyes are like connected to like wires on stuff. That'd be cool. Yeah. Do referendums subvert parliamentary democracy? Too many words. I ain't reading all that. Are there any Asian values? There may be values that may originate from Asian cultures, because I know Japan has a much more like has a much different culture than what America has. So it could be considered Asian values, but it wouldn't be necessarily that it's just Asians that have it. You know what I mean? Why are traditional political parties losing popularity in the Euro-American world? Because nobody likes America. That's why. Is it acceptable that most of us have much less exposure to the laws of thermodynamics than the works of Shakespeare? Is it acceptable that most of us have much less exposure to the laws of thermodynamics than the works of Shakespeare? No one cares about thermodynamics. People, who cares about thermodynamics? People who study thermodynamics. You know what I mean? Like that's. And also the works of Shakespeare. You know who cares about the works of Shakespeare? People who read the works of Shakespeare. Okay. Yes, it is acceptable because no one cares. Are open access journals the future of academic publishing? No, because I have no idea what they are. Is the difference between team of stars and star team? What is the difference between a team of stars and a star team? Nothing, because they both mean the same thing. What can be done about unconscious bias? To have the conscious correction of your bias, right? When you're being prejudiced about someone or assuming something about someone else, instead of just going along with what you instinctively do, recognize what you're doing. Recognize whatever you're doing might be wrong and correct those behaviors. What impact does inequality have upon a nation's prosperity? What impact does inequality have upon nation's prosperity? It allows only certain groups to like be wealthy, or in a sense have a quality of life, which would ultimately fail because as inequality continues to persist, the problems will only get more apparent, and awareness would spread, and people would fight for the correction of that inequality. So in a sense, it would negatively affect it because the people who are fighting for the equality of the people who are oppressed, or the unequals. That sounds weird, but I'm not trying to be weird. Like it would ultimately damage it, because ultimately there would be like a revolution or something like that to fight for the equality that they deserve, and then the society will fall. Is forgetting always a problem? No, but there should be things that prevent people from forgetting in the first place. Because for me, I'm a forgetful person. Like I tend to be forgetful. I tend to forget things. I have like crappy short-term memory. It's not that I have a mental condition. I just forget things a lot, right? So while it's not always a problem, I can still function as a person. Sorry. I can still function as a person. It's not a problem. It just take measures to prevent it and make it less of a disturbance. In what ways, if any, is a refugee crisis distinctive? I don't think there's any ways it's distinctive. It's just a refugee crisis. You just help the refugees. Cowardice is the most terrible vice. Cowardice. Like whatever. I know. Why did I search that up? I know what that means. It's the most terrible vice. No, I think heroin is the most terrible vice. You should be scared of. I'd rather be scared of doing drugs than actually doing the drug. You know what I mean? Like I think, most people. I think cowardice is a safe vice, but it's not a helpful one either. It's not a big better. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's it. It's not fun to be. It's not fun to be a coward. I would say that. What did Shakespeare do for us? He wrote stories that impacted the lives of many people, and like the culture of art in general. Should you always read the book first? No, because no one cares. It doesn't matter what you read first. Just read what you want. It's up to the individual, not anyone else. What consequences can immorality in fiction have in fact? What consequences can immorality have in fiction? What consequences can immorality in fiction have in fact? It leads people to do things that are wrong because they were taught by like the cartoons or whatever fiction they read or watched, right? It teaches people the wrong values and ultimately hurts society. Why is the idea of apocalypse appealing? Because it gives us a light at the end because it gives us the light at the end of the tunnel. Because it gives us sorry, why am I stuttering so much? Because it gives us a light at the end of a tunnel, which is ultimately like working for 50 years and dying out like the rest of us, which involves like working for 50 years and then retiring at 70 with $10,000 in the bank. You know what I mean? The apocalypse gives us a sense of hope that maybe one day things will change and we can just live freely with, I think, pure free will at that point, I guess. I don't know. Is Putin's Russia a threat to the West? At this point, it probably is. Is there a public interest in publishing a kiss and tell stories? Yes, there is, because it's like gossip, right? You want to hear about gossip. People want to hear about gossip. I think it just, if you do it smartly, then you can publish a kiss and tell story. It doesn't matter. Are there any systems of exchange that should not be regarded as markets? Slave market, you know what I mean? That should not be regarded as a market. It should not be any form of exchange like that. You know what I mean? Like human trafficking, drugs should not be regarded as markets. I think that's pretty much it, actually. What the caterpillar who knew himself could never become a butterfly? The caterpillar who knew himself would never become a butterfly. They're just false, I guess. Because he would eventually become a butterfly if he so chose to be. There's an option, you know. Just press yes. What do terrorists want? To give terror and to spread a message that ultimately is meaningless because they just die, or like they pose a threat to like what they actually want people to believe. What is the point of, if any, of requiring students to write essays to help develop their essay writing skills, and to that's basically it, because ultimately the skill is important, but it's only for like when you're down the line in university where they ask you to write a 20-page essay about a certain thing. That is what writing an essay in like community college and like high school are training you to be. They're training you to just write essays for college, and that's after that it's like very few times where you will be required to write an essay for anyone else. Why does it matter how polymer is destroyed? I don't know what that is. Cultural, I'll look it up. What is Palmyra? It's an ancient city. I don't know. I don't care. Cultural property, a contradiction in terms. Cultural property, a contradiction in terms. I don't know. Not necessarily, because think of like Native American lands. It's cultural. It's property. Do we really need a literary canon? We do, because I mean it's just a story. We don't need like another. I don't see the point of this question. I prefer the most unfair peace to most righteous war. I prefer the most unfair peace to the most righteous war. I prefer the most unfair peace to the most righteous war. No, I guess. I don't think I agree with that. Peace to righteous war. Because I mean the war would be justified if it was righteous. So then it would be unfair. I mean, I guess so. Because if the war was right, I mean, then it would be like on no like PC terms. Like it's a win or lose. Is a common language an essential part of a culture? I mean, no, not essential, because you have something like Los Angeles or New York, people speak many different languages. You don't need, I mean, no, people can still enjoy music. People can still enjoy shows. You know what I mean? It's not, even if you don't understand the language, you can still enjoy stuff. I don't see a reason why not. Can a person who always been healthy imagine what it's like to be poor? Oh, to be wealthy. I would like to say yes, but they need to be educated. It's not like you can it's not like you can learn to be it's not like you can learn to be poor, or learn to know what it feels like to be poor. I'd rather be educated on the way people live when they're poor, right? Like watching videos or going to interview those people that are poor, to understanding, to grasp like how poor these people are, right? They inherently they don't understand, or they don't care. So it's important that they educate. So it's important that they educate. So it's important that they educate themselves. Will big data increase or decrease the importance of theory in the social sciences? I don't know what that means. I don't care. What features of text enable it to outlive the immediate circumstances of its production? What features of a text enable it to outlive the immediate circumstances of its production? Because it will outlive it ultimately. Whether it's physical or digital, the text will live on somewhere in some form or another. So, yeah, because you don't delete text unless it's like done so by like the computer dying, or like the person choosing to delete it. So if you choose to publish it, then it would outlive it ultimately, because it would always exist in reality. What features? Oh no. Why don't books of literally literally criticism sell. Is that true? I mean, if it based on this question, I would say that because it's kind of boring. People don't want that. People want the extreme. People want like the extreme values, the ideals, right? But if that's only if that is true, because I have no idea if that's true. The truth is that no definition of tragedy can elaborate. The truth that is that no definition of tragedy can elaborate. The truth is that no definition of tragedy more elaborate than very sad has ever worked. The truth is that no definition of tragedy more elaborate than very sad has ever worked. No. There's like horrifying, terrifying, inhumane. I mean, it's very sad to lose your dog, but it's not horrifying to lose your dog. So, should global history be about more than movement and connection? I mean, it's just a fact, you know. It's not just movement and connection. It's interpersonal relationships. It's culture. It's life and death. You know what I mean? It's not. It is. It's not a should. It is. Right? It's just a fact of history. You look at history, look at what these people did, how they felt, and what they wrote down, and you're like, oh crap! It's just more than movement and connection. It's so much more. Is it time for historians to read less Foucault and more Weber? I don't care who these authors are, dude. What history should children learn? All of it. The Holocaust, the things that show human patterns, right? You know what I mean? Maybe the Holocaust. Maybe I'm thinking about human history. Holocaust is a big one for me. I don't want people to forget about the Holocaust. The how the British ruled over like almost all of the world. How they've affected the cultures around the world, and maybe American history as well. To remember like the Jim Crow laws and, you know, racial injustice in America. You know what I mean? Like we fought for equality for this, guys. Come on, let's not lose it. I think someone's in my house. It's okay. The planned diplomatic history. I don't think history is anything other than just history, right? It shouldn't be like labeled as anything else. It's just history. So I defend diplomatic history. So what is diplomatic history? Diplomatic history. Between states. Oh, and I mean, it's. I think it's more useful to just keep it. I think it's more useful to keep everybody in check of like what their history is, and just to correct everybody about a certain history. Yeah. When and why was there a great divergence in economic performance between Europe and Asia? When and why was there a great divergence in economic performance between Europe and Asia? Great divergence in economic performance between Europe and Asia. When, after World War II, when Archduke Franz Ferdinand was assassinated in Poland. I don't know if he was assassinated in Poland. I have no idea after that. I can't answer that. Is popular politics always conservative? No, they just happen to be the powerful party. Is third world poverty the legacy of colonialism? It's not the defining trait of colonialism. Colonialism is more of like a consequence of colonialism. What has the importance of 1968 been overstated? I don't know. I've never been there. Like, hold on. Let me look it up. What happened in 1968? 68. Oh. Been overstated? So it's apparently the year uh that MLK was killed, it's not even overstated. I think it's very important to talk about like his assassination and his death, because he was like a very influential person. He was a very influential person in America. More than 2/3 of Britain's support gender equality, but just 7% would call themselves feminists. I feel like it's because of the idea of a feminist has been so twisted already that people don't feel comfortable like identifying themselves as a feminist. But they will say they want equality, because like feminists, usually the word feminist is like taken to more of an extreme. People like see it more extremely, rather than just like an idea, right? An extreme feminist would be like someone who like believes all men should be dead, and then like a woman should be like the most powerful people on the planet. When ultimately a real feminist wants equality, right? That's the whole point. So once extreme feminists like stop existing, then we can have like a real conversation about what it means to be a feminist. Should poverty be ever a defense against should poverty ever be a defense against a charge of shoplifting? Yes and no. I feel like if you're homeless, then what are you gonna get charged with? Like you're about to die. You know what I mean? Like you shouldn't have to like go to jail in order to survive. So I think if you're generally just poor and you need to resort to theft, you should be given like help from the government, like real help, like a baseline wage until you get like your feet off the ground. You know what I mean? A woman should not have to ask the permission of 2 doctors to have an abortion. Discuss. No, they should not necessarily have permission. They should be allowed to just schedule it and just do it. Or like have an inspection, right? And just to know that they're doing it safely and doing it correctly. You know what I mean? I don't think they need permission of 2 doctors. Like that's absurd. Like, do I need permission of 2 doctors to like buy insulin for diabetes? Like, no, I should just have the health. It's healthcare. You know what I mean? You don't need permission for this kind of stuff. You're not a child. What if any are the lessons of Chilcot? What the frick is that? Chilcot? Oh. Chilcot. I don't know. It was a person, so I don't care. A phrase we often use to avoid punishment contains something we use. A phrase we often use to avoid punishment contains something true, hence uncontrollable, hence dangerous. Because I didn't do it on purpose. I mean, it was an accident. Very often used to avoid punishment contains something true, hence uncontrollable, hence dangerous. What the formula was okay. I think it's true. Just because it's used to avoid punishment doesn't mean it's like a lie or it's untrue. Like, it was an accident. Like, even though maybe you should have been a bit smarter and be more aware of what you were doing, it was ultimately an accident, right? And based on the severity of that accident, right? Punishments should weigh in that sense. Yeah. We are fallen creatures. All we can do is uphold the laws, all of us, without allowing the memory of justice to fade. Yeah, I mean, I agree. We're fallen creatures. All we can do is to uphold the laws, all of us, without allowing the memory of justice to fade. Yep, true. That is true. I agree with that. To say whatever we think people ought to have, that they might have the right to it, is not to say very much. To say of whatever we think people ought to have. To say whatever we think people ought to have. They have the right. They have a right to it. It is not to say very much. To say of whatever we think people ought to have, that they have a right to it, is not to say very much. Yeah, I agree with that too. I think it's basically saying that arguing about the rights of people, whether they deserve it or not, is like, like there's not much an argument about it. It's just like what it exists and what it is and what people deserve. So I agree. Are balanced budgets and a legitimate moral ideal? Yeah. because you want to balance your budget so you can feed your kids. Because if you're not going to balance your budget to feed your kids, what money? Where's that money going? You know what I mean? Like, obviously for poor, it's much more different, right? There's a difference between situations, right? But you have to consider like the moral things about your income and the money that you have. Is speculation in commodity markets morally defensible? Commodity markets. Commodity is like convenience, not convenience. Commodity is like luxury in a sense, I guess. I don't want to get this wrong. Commodity. Bond soldiers, copper or coffee. No, it's just a good. It's just something that can sell or be bought. In commodity markets, morally defensible? Yes, because you're just like trying to see if certain things will have value or certain things will not have value. Like there's just speculation. Is racial profiling ever legitimate? No. No. Because you're judging someone based off of race, which is not right. If you see a group of gangsters, right, and half of them are black, half of them are white, you don't racially profile. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're all in a sense gangsters, or they're all like people that might be dangerous, not because of their race, because of their gangsters. You know what I mean? Like, they're walking around like looking like gangsters. You know what I mean? Like, there's a difference there. And you see a group of lawyers, some of them are black, some of them are white. You don't think all the black lawyers are bad. Like, that's no, you just don't. Should FIFA be placed under the governance of United Nations? Should FIFA be placed under the governance of United Nations? Who cares? It's just FIFA. Should an architect be refused to design a dictator's vanity project? Yeah. If they want to lose their job or their life, maybe. It's up to them, honestly. Not my choice. Should the study of non-Western philosophy be a requirement for a philosophy degree in the UK? Yes. Just so everyone can have like a unique perspective on what life is. You get a perspective from the West, perspective from the UK, but this perspective from Europe. You should say philosophy from every parts of the world. I think it's more important, better that way. Will philosophy eventually be absorbed by the scientists? It's hard to say, but because the world is getting much more progressive, maybe. The distinction between sex and gender turns out to be no distinction at all. Because one is an idea. No. Is an experimental philosophy just a bad psychology? Is experimental philosophy just bad psychology? Is experimental philosophy just bad psychology? Is experimental philosophy just bad psychology? Maybe, I guess. I don't know. It's too vague. Do primary schools need a national curriculum? Do primary schools need a national curriculum? Yes. No. Yes. Yes, because everyone has the same upbringing as well. So everyone has the same baseline of understanding of the world. Improve the rules of any one sport. Footballers, the ball should explode randomly at certain points in the game, just to make it a bit more interesting. What is the new black? Whoa. In the sense of fashion, then yellow. Popular music thrives on endless repetition. Nothing new since Nirvana. Do you agree this is a problem? Yes. And it is a problem because it lacks like creativity and it lacks some variety. But in a sense it would also like encourage variety, right? when people will get the formula right and have a song that is not necessarily like part of mainstream culture and it's still just a pretty dang good song, people would enjoy it regardless. A good song would be a good song regardless. Do religions have to be theistic? No. No. I think there's some that's about like the tarot cards and the zodiacs. It's basically a religion, more with extra steps and like just ought human beauty to be healthy? Ought human beauty to be healthy? Yes. Human beauty should also be about being healthy as well. So if you're not healthy, you should... It's not that you're considered ugly, it's just that you should be encouraged to be healthy. Because healthy is ultimately a good thing. To be healthy and live a long life. A long and happy life where you don't have back pain in 20 years when you're 15. Okay. Can you still be an explorer? Yeah. But for personal gain, you can't explore what's already been explored and discover something new, right? You can explore for your own personal development, I guess, if that's the correct word. So I've never personally been to like Madagascar or Europe or whatever. So I can still explore for my own benefit. But I mean, in a sense that the places have already been explored, so I won't be contributing anything new to society. What wouldn't you photograph? Other people not consensually? Are you Charlie? Ooh, yeah, baby. That's what I've been waiting for. That's what I've been waiting for. That's what I'm all about. Wait, no, I can't say it right. That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about. Oh yeah, baby. That's me. That's my Charlie. Is war antisocial? Yes. Because you're killing other people. Just talk to them. You know what I mean? Like, should all debts be repaid? Not necessarily, because ultimately debts will still exist. It's just important that we have ethical debts rather than unethical debts. Like when it comes to like student loans or just like most kinds of loans and most kinds of just what is it called, like most kinds of finances and stuff like that, like bills, taxes. If someone promises to give you money though, like that's on them, you know what I mean? But then people will take advantage, like how I meant with like school and stuff like that, is like schools are predatory. Like they just suck money out of the kids. They don't care. They don't care what they're doing. They don't care what they're educating. They just want the money. So in that sense, debts should be repaid. Totally, because then it makes it not predatory. Should the government stop UK nationals from traveling to Syria to fight? I don't know what's going on in Syria, so I can't say. Fix the UK's parliaments. Just be good. Like have equality. Be socialist. Regulate companies. Don't let the companies interfere with the government, and you'll be good. And free healthcare and free insurance and free everything, except for like the markets basically and consumables and stuff like that. There you go. Should politics be exciting? No, because they determine the lives of people around us. So it's not going to be entertaining. It's going to be important for society. Are there too many of us? Yes. If I were Thanos, I would be snapping that thing like every other day. You know what I mean? Are some sports necessarily class specific? No. And no. No. Because anyone could be successful in a sport. It's more about genetics. It's more about like genetics and like whether or not you develop to be like a tall person. In the sense of basketball, you need to be tall. In the sense of football, you need to be like bold and strong. In the sense of soccer, you need to be fast. Like it's not just a class specific. No, yeah. Because you can still work out even if you're poor, you know what I mean? Like it's not rocket science. Is there a sense in which capitalism is a transformation of slavery? Yes, and we're seeing that today in America as well. Work is the source of nearly all of the misery in the world. Should we abolish work? No. Ultimately, work gives us a sense of purpose. The problem is, work is now seen as more like a job, as like a place that sucks the life out of people. So once we allow people to find their purpose in life, then it would be less of like the source of all pain in the world. You know what I mean? In what ways might music be usefully compared to language? It can show emotions that anyone can understand rather than just through words. Why prefer an original painting to an excellent copy? Because the original painting is more valuable. It was the first of its kind. You know what I mean? Because the copy will mean it makes it less valuable. But because it's the first of its kind, then, you know, it makes it more valuable. Should the police and the armed forces be allowed to strike? Strike who? Like humans? Like civilians? No. Should not be allowed to strike humans. It baffles me that when they like take down a person, they just start beating them up for no reason. Just arrest them, bro. You don't need to kick their ribs in. Just arrest them, bro. Like it's not difficult. Could someone with a 21st century sensibility understand the literature of past ages? Yeah, you can. You just gotta take the time to educate and be open-minded. Why do we go out of our way to watch sad films or plays? Because it helps us feel alive. It helps us feel emotion. When they're sad. Why do women and men not receive equal pay? That is a nuanced question that I will not answer. You can be a feminist and get married in a white wedding dress. Yeah, of course. It's just a white wedding dress, okay? If you really oppose like tradition like that, then do whatever you want, bro. Like, who cares? But they're just like the way it's been, right? It's just a marriage, right? People, if it's just a white wedding dress. Like it could symbolize something if you wanted to, but if it just looks pretty, if you want to be pretty in a white dress, who cares? Okay, just wear whatever you want. Okay, it's your wedding. Yeah, who cares? 27 British prime ministers have an Oxford alumni. What is the right response to this? Have been Oxford alumni. Good for you, I guess. I don't care. It's a time for schools to replace the teaching of foreign languages with instruction in computer. No. People should learn foreign languages. For the people who are able to be better people or just communicate across more places, makes them just better overall. I'd rather learn the languages of other people. To be able to communicate with more people and just learn more experiences, right? I don't know any languages other than just a little bit of Spanish. It would be nice to have that whole world open up to me, right? But I can't because I learned how to code instead. The computer, like you're gonna talk to a country of like robots, right? That's what you're gonna do one day. Is race real? What? I think it's undeniable that my skin is relatively white, brownish, tannish. You can't tell from here, but in real life it's kind of tannish. If I brought a black person next to me, African American, are you gonna tell me that his skin color or our skin colors are not real? No, I think it's foolish to say that it's not real. To say that it's not important, it's a different thing, because we're still human beings ultimately. But race is just, you know, the our genetic buildup of who we are as a person. It makes us unique, right? If everyone was white, then like there's just less variety in the world now. But now since everybody's different colors, there's a variety. There's unique human experiences, right? What am I looking at? Make a robust case against keeping calm and carrying on. Keep calm and carrying on. Maybe don't keep calm. Okay, get angry. Okay, who wants to keep calm for the entire life? Okay, get angry. Okay, let your emotions shine. Okay, and if you don't want to carry on, that's fine. Just stop. Okay, just let out some anger sometimes. Let out your emotions. Okay, you're chilling. Okay, you don't need to worry. Okay, you're fine. Does the internet bring out the worst people? Yes, because of the anonymity. yes, because of the anonymity of the internet, which allows people to just do whatever they want without consequence, brings out the worst. What, if anything, is wrong with risk? Nothing is wrong with risk. It just matters who takes the risk in the first place. What is the most important law of nature? The law of patterns. Patterns are one of the biggest things in nature. They're patterns in the things that grow, the way that things move, the way that time flows through nature. The patterns are there. Patterns are probably like the most important things about nature. Do we now have too much data? No. Information is good information. We should collect more. We should collect as much data as we can to educate ourselves and to learn more about the world that surrounds us. There's more, dude. There's more. Did the ancients have any concept of rights? Some did, some didn't. How important was tourism in the ancient world? Not really. People couldn't go far. Communication was just slow. You wouldn't even know that another world existed, like back in the old days. But once some people started driving, people started boating, people started flying, the world opened up. Did the ancients keep pets? How do we know? Because isn't there like paintings and stuff like that? Like they show like animals just being with them. What have the Romans ever done for us? Monty Python, discuss. What have the Romans done for us? They killed Jesus. That's one thing. So there's that. I don't know. Should governments pay ransom to hostage takers? Maybe. Yes. If there's no other way, then maybe. Wait, no. I mean, wait. They mean like in domestic situation. I meant like if I thought it meant like war hostage or like like when someone from the army is like taken and captured by another country. But I meant hostage takers. Yes. And then just kill them or something, and then just grab them, and then after you pay the ransom, just grab the person and send them to jail. That's it. Who should rescue asylum seekers stranded at sea? Anyone possible. Oh wait, I'll rescue anyone who's willing to take them in. Anyone who has the space and the time to be able to take them in, you should. Is freedom of choice best served by compelling people to make a choice? No. Freedom of choice is also freedom of not making a choice as well. People can choose to just walk away, which people should be encouraged to do sometimes. Are rich people worse parents? Yes, because then they encourage their kids to have worse morals to be rich. Stories of imagination tend to upset those without me. Huh? Stories of imagination tend to upset those without one. Stories of imagination tend to upset those without one. Maybe, I guess. People with no imagination. No, because they're like more grounded in reality. They're individual stories. Like, who cares? I doubt it does. And if it does, that's kind of weird. It might be possible to formulate the law of increasing Philistinism. I'm looking it up. The more money involved in art, the more it is adulterated and less real art is produced. The more money involved in art, the more it is adulterated, the less real art is produced. Let me look it up first. Philistinism. Person who is hostile to or different to culture. Wait, no, what? Culture matters. It might be impossible to formulate a law of increasing philistinism. More money involved in art, more it is adulterated and less real art produced. Discussed. No, I think having resources to create whatever you like allows it to be more than just art. Allows it to have more meaning and more awareness to be spread with the art. It just gives it more resources, I guess. Does good writing do good? Yes, it does. Good writing does good because what does good writing mean? What does it mean to be a good writer, right? A good writer just means that you're good at writing stories, and you can, if you're a good writer, you can write a good story, and it can still be about sending a bad message. But if the good writing is morally good, then like spreads a good message, then it's good. So it's too vague to answer though. That's the problem, right? If it's a bit more like specific about like what exactly is good about the writing, like the way it's worded is good, then doesn't mean it is good on its own, as in morally good. Make a case for fan fiction. It's just people expressing how much they enjoy a certain property. While it doesn't infringe on copyright laws, or while it sometimes infringes on copyright laws, people are still allowed to make fan fiction. People are still going to do it anyway. Just let them do it. Who cares? If they're trying to make money off of it, then sue them, I guess. I don't care. Archaeology is an expensive way of telling us what we already know. No. Like, how would we know if like dinosaurs existed if we like never dug up the bones? You know what I mean? Like, we didn't know that dinosaurs existed, so like, bruh. Whoever said this is weird. What about writers of history? Do all their labors bring a better return, or just use more time and midnight oil? Who will pay a historian as much as someone who reads out the news is paid? Has anything changed? Do all the laborers bring in better return, or just use one more time and midnight oil? Who will pay a historian as much as someone who reads out the news is paid? Who will pay a historian as much as someone? Anything changed? I have no idea, dude. They're both like relatively unimportant occupations, so it doesn't matter. History properly studied in order to give back to the past the uncertainty that characterizes the future. I think this is true. Well, you can't literally give back to the past. You can metaphorically give back to the past, as in like, hey, things have changed since then. I guess that's the only thing I can do. Big history, big mistake, big mama. I don't know. I don't know what that means. Justice is the first virtue of social institutions, as truth is of systems of thoughts. Do you agree? I do agree. Is the concept of sovereign statehood outdated? What is sovereign statehood? Statehood. What is that? State has a hatchery over territory. International law defines sovereign as states have a permanent population, defined territory, government, a government not under another, but as a capital territory of sovereign states. Probably, I've never heard of that before, so I guess it doesn't matter. Does it pay to be tough on crime? Yeah, because then crime is less committed. Like, people don't commit crimes as much. And there's like trust in the government. The problem with that is that there's a difference between tough on crime and police brutality. You know what I mean? I think it's very clearly that being tough on crime in America would not have the same results than it does in like Hong Kong or whatever. What is the place with like all the cameras everywhere? That's probably better. There's no place for ritual ceremony in a modern legal system. There's no place for ritual or ceremony in a modern legal system. Ritual and ceremony in a modern legal system. Ritual and ceremony in a modern legal system. That is not true. Actually, no, it's not true, because some of the values in a ritual and ceremony could still apply to the circumstances in modern life. How is the relationship between you and your body different from that between you and your online avatar? Because on your online avatar, you're allowed to be whoever you want to be. On your real body, you're kind of stuck in with yourself, right? I would want to be probably taller and stronger. Well, I can try to be stronger. Like, genetically, I would always have like a certain standard to myself. If my genetics allowed me to just grow muscle much more easily, then that is like in a sense like me not having the body that I kind of want. But in the sense of an online avatar, I can just be whoever I want to be. I can train to be whoever I want to be because it doesn't take a massive amount of hours and money and time. You know what I mean? When we turn from anger, we turn from insight. When we turn from anger, we turn from insight, saying we will accept only the designs already known, deadly and safely familiar. When we turn from anger, we turn from insight, saying we will accept only the designs already known, deadly and safely familiar. Discuss. What the frick does that mean, dude? Who said that? I don't think that's true. Insight is more valuable than anger. Does not have the same relationship to us that anger does, because your insight to make informed decisions as one does, but anger is not in a real relationship with insight. Is it possible to cheat yourself? No, but it's possible to fail yourself. When are apologies meaningful? When they truly mean it and they can show the change. When they truly mean it, they can show the change. Because someone can apologize, right? And while they may be genuinely sorry, they may not make the change to it. It's important that they show like the consequences of their actions, and it's important that they acknowledge it. It's important that they figure out how to be better. When they don't do that, it's not really that meaningful. Conservative Matt is two perfectly good legs, however, has learned how to walk forward. Conservative man has two perfectly good legs. Yeah, I guess so. A lot of what I see about conservatives is that they're not progressive. They're not at all for the people. They just want they're greedy. Not to generalize, because I don't want to generalize anybody, but like if you're conservative, just like generally, but if you're conservative, genuinely just reconsider your actions right now. How is it affecting others? Like, is it really that important? But yeah. Politics is the art of looking for trouble, finding it anywhere, diagnosing it incorrectly, and applying the wrong remedies. No. Because politics is ultimately like the discussion of like moral dilemmas and like how to solve issues in society. And while politics may seem like the definition of it may seem like the definition given here, it ultimately should be like solving problems good and effectively and humanely. When I take action, I'm not going to fire 2 million missile attempting. When I take action, I'm not going to fire a $2 million missile at a $10 empty tent and hit a Campbell in the butt. It's going to be decisive. If whenever is decisive, virtual and commander in chief. Always having the ability to make a proper decision is important, because then you don't screw things up. Government of the few, by the few, and for the few. Is this a fair criticism of modern politics? No. Because it's much more. It affects a lot more people than I realize. Anyway, that's the end of the thing. That was a lot. I thought I talked a lot during there. My throat is dying. I will see you guys next time. Follow. Bye bye.